Welcome, everyone, to the captive audience. It is a few minutes later than planned for starting tonight's show on the 4th of February, 2025. I'm Kevin Horn. I'm not stuck on stupid. And we're going to talk a little bit more about how so many Democrats are. In fact, case in point, we're going to start out with Oregon Senator Ron Wyden. Yesterday, of course, he lost his mind and complained that Elon Musk had access to controlling Treasury payments, which, as we know, the Treasury was sending money on behalf of USAID to anybody who wanted it with no screening. And that was discovered by the Doge folks. But what was clarified today for the benefit of people like our friend Ron Wyden, the third senator from New York, who pretends to be from Oregon still. Anyway, because he lives in New York City with his wife. That's where they live. They don't live in Oregon. He just comes back and visits every so often and then puts pictures up for the media to use that look like he did in the 1990s, because he doesn't look like that anymore. Anyway, he lost his mind about that yesterday. And guess what? Today, it was made clear that the Doge folks only have read-only access. What that means is, in computer terms, they can see and search, but they can't modify or delay or anything like that. And so I guess what we're talking about now is a daily panic, a daily losing of the mind by Ron Wyden, who they're really grasping at any straws they can find. As I said yesterday, they've been holding these town halls that are really just progressive rallies where people whine and moan and complain about Trump, who just got into office, and they don't talk at all about the problems that they've left in their wake in the previous administration, and the fact that the Democrats did nothing to solve those things, and they lost last fall in large part because of that failure. Instead, they tried to get these crowds at these town halls with 500 and some people there that locked out folks that just wanted to come in. I tried to attend one of them in South Eugene High School. Couldn't get in. No room. And so they told these folks that the number one thing that needs to be done is there needs to be a public outcry against Trump over all of these different issues that he is rapidly solving in the way that he promised during the campaign, and he's keeping his promises. And all of these folks think that they have to do everything they can to stop problems from being solved and addressed. So anyway, Ron Wyden's today's panic by Ron Wyden is that he is joining the effort to block tariffs, even though the tariffs against Canada and Mexico have been suspended and were put in place specifically to make sure that those countries would help aggressively work to secure our borders and stop the flow of fentanyl in the United States, which is killing 100,000 Americans a year. So anyway, a bunch of left-wing people suddenly care about the cost to consumers of things after they presided over a more than 40 to 50% increase in almost every basic food item that there is over the last 5 years. And they have nothing to say about that. But now they're concerned because they said tariffs are going to make prices go up, except that tariffs aren't being imposed because they are a tool which has successfully compelled Canada and Mexico to do what they should be doing anyway, which is help the United States protect its borders, stop the flow of illegal migrants and fentanyl into the country, and criminals who should be deported, and they are being deported. So there you go. Ron Wyden losing his mind as usual. And like I said, every day they throw a panic. They try to run a bunch of news headlines to get people freaked out, like, oh my God, prices are going to go up. And they start asking people on the street before the prices have gone up, are you concerned about prices going up? And they say, of course, well, yeah, I'm concerned about that, except that the tariffs didn't actually end up happening because they worked. And a day later, the Democrats have all this egg on their face. Trump rightly has pointed out that the media right now is going into full freak out mode, where they are constantly putting up what he called fake news in an overdrive. That's at least the way he put it. And he's right. They are. They're back at it. They're doing exactly what they did before. And they're not chastened by the fact that they, frankly, have failed entirely to pay attention to the concerns of the American people. And now they claim to be representing the concerns of the American people by putting out fake news attacking President Trump, who's only been in office for about 13 days. so there you go. Anyway, on to the next story. I can't find the Doge story. I thought I had that one handy, but it's somewhere in the Newsmax listing that I was trying to peruse through. Feds are opening an anti-Semitism investigation at Portland State University. President Trump has ordered this investigation, and the U.S. Department of Justice is looking into 5 additional higher education institutions because of the reports of anti-Semitism. Thank you, Elfrida. Yes, I appreciate that. New hat. I've temporarily retired the Let's Go Brandon hat. So I'm going to wear a different hat, hopefully every broadcast, and feature hats that maybe you'll appreciate. And then we'll bring back the favorites depending on how you guys react. So there have been reports of widespread anti-Semitic harassment at these institutions. Jewish students simply trying to get an education being attacked, verbally assaulted, blocked, physical threats, intimidation in the classroom, and harassment. And so now they are facing investigation. And the spokesperson for Portland State University, Katie Swordfisk, says that tells Willamette Week, the university takes anti-Semitism concerns seriously and strives to make the campus inclusive and respectful to all community members. It is their understanding that the February 3rd notice that the U.S. Department of Education initiates a directed investigation, which means it is not based on a specific complaint from an individual, but instead prompted by the new administration. So they're already trying to poo-poo the existence of this anti-Semitism. But anybody who can read signs and watch public media reports can see what is being said. And we know this has been reported across the country, that this harassment has gone on and created a real sense of fear on these campuses just because someone happens to be of Jewish descent, maybe perhaps openly exhibiting religious garb, or known to be a student studying who's from Israel. Anyway, they say that they will investigate, they will cooperate fully, and they don't believe that there's any violation that's being investigated. By the way, campus protesters have been trying to force the university to sever ties with Boeing, demand that the university call for a ceasefire in Gaza. There's going to be a ceasefire when all the Hamas guys are dead. Then the ceasefire will begin for sure. I mean, they've already tried to engineer one, but in the end, that's going to be the real one. And they say they want to stop the selling of Israeli-made merchandise on campus because they don't want Israelis or anybody to be able to buy it. So, by the way, I really would like them to explain why they would even spend any time listening to people who are rooting for the perpetrators of the October 7th attacks. Why is that? You know, they seem to be concerned that Israel might be killing civilians in response to this. However, they're also, of course, ignoring the fact that uh, that Hamas, who kidnapped people from Israel and took them back into the Gaza Strip, and then have held on to them for a year and a half plus, more than that, almost two. Well, it's a year plus, right? But that they're using the civilians as human shields. They found weapons stores and headquarters actually for Hamas under hospitals, which is a violation of the Geneva Convention. Why aren't they protesting and demanding that those people be brought up on war crimes charges? Instead, the International Criminal Court is spending all its time trying to call for the arrest of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. You know, that's why these institutions have to be scrapped and we have to defund them. It's that simple. And then curtail the jurisdiction and sanction anybody who follows it. Simple as that. You want to go and support Hamas? You can do it on your own dime. And pay the price of being unable to associate with the United States of America. I think that's actually the way to do it. So here's the story about that. Here's a story of local relevance. The top Portland safety official is going to step down this spring. Now, you might not know that he's stepping down because actually he spent the last 4 months working from Las Vegas. So this is the top Portland official tasked with overseeing the city's police, fire, and 911 bureaus, has spent months doing his job from nearly 1,000 miles away. He said he relocated to Las Vegas due to health problems. I got no problem with that. But then how is he doing the job in Portland when he can't even go out and see the safety problems that he is failing to fix? And there are plenty of them. And he's not returned to Portland ever since, despite a new mayor and a 12-member city council taking office in January, and other major changes to the government. He's just not come back. And so he's going to stay until his contract ends. I think it's time to fire somebody who just simply won't come and observe the safety situation that they're overseeing. They owe more to the voters. They owe more to the people that, frankly, are entitled to better public safety. And the new mayor, Keith Wilson, did not learn that Myers was living in Nevada until about 2 weeks ago. So let's see what he does about it. He did tell 700 city managers and supervisors they must begin working in person full-time starting this spring. He's told them that. I don't know. Let's see if they follow through, because there's a lot of telling people to do things and then not following through. And I do hope that Portland can turn things around. But I think this is also an example of, government may actually entirely fail. We'll see. Now, maybe the guy's doing a good job. Fine. Explain that to the city council. Let's hear it. He can appear via Zoom, just like, almost everybody else seems to. And maybe he's a great guy and he's done a great job. But I think it's time that we get an explanation of what's happening with our tax dollars. Because, by the way, even if you're not paying taxes in Portland like I am, your federal money and state money that is being paid by your taxes is going there. And so there's some accountability that needs to happen. So I hope this does happen. Again, if he's doing a great job, it's time to explain that and explain exactly how. And not appear to have fled the city that you're supposed to be providing safety for. Switching to national news. So President Trump actually had a really interesting message. He met with Benjamin Netanyahu today. Among other things, he said that maybe the United States should just that Palestinians should just leave Gaza permanently, and the U.S. should take it over. I think it could make a fine international airport. I think that has been something that's been hinted at by many people I know, and I think it's perhaps a very smart idea. It certainly isn't. They keep saying it's a jail and a terrible place to live. Don't live there. Go somewhere else, you know? And but it's time that something be done about this. And I know ongoing discussions are taking place with some of the other Arab countries who, by the way, generally don't want these Palestinians there either, because just importing a bunch of militants that they're going to have to kill really isn't in their interest either. But listen, leaving Gaza the way it is, I think, is quickly becoming a non-option. A non-option. Now, I like the idea that President Trump is strongly supporting the Israeli prime minister to finish this job and to provide aid. But as it turns out, Congress, which is controlled by Republicans, by the way, has placed a hold on a $1 billion military aid package to Israel. And President Trump wants it to go, and Congress has blocked it. Now, I don't know how long they're going to get away with that, because to be honest, there are a lot of people that had problems with the fact that Joe Biden kept selectively blocking aid to Israel, claiming that they were using it to force Israel into making concessions to Hamas and Hezbollah against their best interests. And actually, about out of the there's apparently armored bulldozers worth over $300 million that are not being provided. Here's what's very interesting about that one. Guess who provided the United States armored bulldozers for the assault on Fallujah during the Iraq War in 2004? Israel did. They actually developed these armored bulldozers and lent them to the United States. And I know this personally, directly, from eyewitness accounts from the person who arranged that at the U.S. Marine Corps, Colonel Mike Howard. And he, of course, won the Bronze Star for his work on providing these bulldozers, saved a ton of Marine lives, and helped them take down the terrorist headquarters in Fallujah and destroy all those terrorists, with very few casualties on for the Marine unit that was following these armored bulldozers. But now, first Joe Biden put it on hold. Now Congress is putting on hold. And those armored bulldozers, they're waiting for them, because actually this helps them do what they need to do to end the war in Gaza the way it should be ended, which is the destruction of Hamas. And also they blocked 4,700 1,000-pound bombs valued at over $700 million. So that's the $1 billion package. And, what is it? They're starting to wonder, like, how do you rebuild Gaza? Do you rebuild Gaza? Is it even worth it? And frankly, why are we slowing down the process of the Israelis finishing the job? We say we want it over as soon as possible. So I say we get it over as soon as possible. I think many of the countries in the Middle East have had it with the Palestinians. They've had it with Hezbollah. The only one who hasn't is Iran. And Iran, big problem. Iran apparently is hurtling towards getting a nuclear weapon. They've turned on the afterburners, and they're actually trying to make sure that and this is according to a U.S. intelligence report that was published recently. And of course, in addition to that, President Trump has turned up the screws on this, reimposed the sanctions, and he is concerned that they're very close to developing a nuclear weapon. So is Benjamin Netanyahu. If they do, it's certainly war in the Middle East. Also, President Trump mentioned a little thing today. He said if Iran, who has actually explicitly tried to do this, assassinates him, he said that they should obliterate Iran. And he's told his staff this is what his intention is, which is so the Maxim Pressure campaign is back on. If they try to successfully assassinate President Trump, his standing orders are to obliterate Iran. I think that would actually be the minimum because I think maybe totally eliminating their government is the least you can do. Um, don't mess with the United States and don't mess with our leaders and pay. They have to pay a dramatically severe price for interfering with the United States government. And by the way, it is super easy to take out their leadership. We know how to do it. We can do it any time. I frankly think the Israelis can do it and made it clear that that's what they should expect to have happen if they go too far. And Iran did try to send a missile towards Benjamin Netanyahu's home. So they have the intent and the willingness to do it. By the way, that U.S. Agency for International Development that is effectively being shut down, there was an internal watchdog, an inspector general report before this was ordered by the president. It was published by the inspector general in late January, and it detailed some longstanding concerns how safeguards against the misuse of funds and the proper authorities to hold violators accountable were missing from the Office Inspector General's toolbox, that they frankly didn't have anything in place to stop misappropriation of funds. And on top of that, we know that the funds have in fact gone to fund a bunch of leftist policy goals. It's a big slush fund. They were funding woke programs like trans parades in Brazil and movies and entertainment for the LGBTQ, promote LGBTQ in Africa, and then of course the worst thing of all is that they have direct evidence that funds were in fact going to terrorist groups and fraudsters. And the U.S. Agency for International Development is apparently doing nothing about it. And I think this is intentional. The aid that they were providing was, in some cases, being overtly diverted to militants and the militaries that were causing the harm that the aid was supposed to alleviate. And so more and more is going to come out about this, and it's just the beginning. We need to make sure that all of these agencies, frankly, get the death penalty for egregious failure like this. The other news on that front is that President Trump's actually looking at scuttling the Department of Education, and he's looking at ways that it could be done by executive order. And so right now, Linda McMahon, who is his nominee for education secretary, Trump has said, I want Linda to put herself out of a job. They're saying that the department has been infiltrated by radicals, zealots, and Marxists. And since the agency is created 5 decades ago, despite efforts to put an end to this, they say it wastes taxpayer money and interferes in local education decisions, but it's also tracked with a dramatic decline in education performance over that time period. So in other words, more money, more failure. That's the Department of Education, more Marxism. So I think it is time to look at this and seriously consider that if there are funds that could go to the benefit of the states for education, I think they may well consider block grants. And And so, but there's going to be Republicans in Congress who are going to get cold feet over this. And so let's see what happens, as President Trump likes to say. But Doge is going to Doge these guys, and they should, because sometimes the worst thing of all isn't just the fact that money is being spent, but what it's being spent on that is contrary not only to the priorities of this administration, uh, duly elected by the American people, but frankly to any reasonable, sane person's priorities for what education funding should go to. And then they could, but if they were to shut it down, they could take pieces of it and move it into other departments and agencies if there is an ongoing need for it. For instance, the Education Department's Office of Civil Rights can just go to the Justice Department and being handled by the Office of Civil Rights in the Justice Department. But Democrats predictably are losing their freaking minds over this, and it's because they are the party of government. They grow it, they defend it, they don't hold it accountable, and they're totally satisfied if it does all kinds of things that it shouldn't be doing. By the way, earlier I said that President Trump said that the fake news hoax machine is still going. I just posted a story about that. I did find it. And there was an email that came out saying that recent stories put out were basically totally false, easily debunked lies. Like one claim by Eric Swalwell, the guy who likes to sleep with Chinese spies, claimed that the Trump administration took away the ability to file taxes for free. It was easily debunked, a total lie. The official IRS direct file website remains online, is accepting tax returns now. And so even the Associated Press had to admit it was an egregious lie and completely false and easily debunked. Yeah, I know education is in Oregon is near the bottom. We talked about that yesterday, and that Tina Kotek is having a hard time explaining why more money should go into the programs that they've supported as things have gotten worse. This is the Democrats are now out there screaming dictatorship this, dictatorship that, and they make claims that the White House Communications Office has said things that they didn't say. Like such as the story about the Treasury Department or classified material being accessed by Doge. No classified material was accessed without proper security clearances. There was a report that Doge had, quote, illegally installed a commercial server to control federal HR databases that contain sensitive personal information. And this is clarified as like nothing illegal and no server, just more made up tall tales from uninformed career bureaucrats who are probably telework. There's a lot of people who are unhappy with being told that they're going to be shown the door. And so they're fueling over time the fake news media complex. Meanwhile, accountability is coming. And this is great news because, first of all, the FBI has been forced to hand over the names of 5,000 agents who worked on January 6th. Now, maybe some of these folks had no choice and were ordered by superiors to do this. Maybe even weren't aware to the extent that they were actually working on some of this stuff, but they're going to find out just who was directing and authorizing all of this and gleefully complying with this investigations, because clearly it's almost at this point human rights abuses, and they don't plan to engage in retribution. Kash Patel's been very clear about that. What they are going to do is they're going to end the abuses. And in the cases where somebody who's been involved with those abuses willfully and directly is involved with it, I think they can and should be shown the door at a minimum. And of course, they should be forced to tell the truth to Congress about what happened, as well as any other investigation. So let's see here. By the way, the fork in the road email that was sent out. It's called the fork in the road email because it offered federal employees and the option until February 6th, so 2 days from now, to um, retain benefits and be paid through September if they agree to to a uh, a federal buyout and to leave their jobs in September, which they can immediately cease working and go out and go on vacation or start a new life in the private sector. 20,000 federal employees who were offered this option have taken it as of Tuesday. So I think there's going to be a lot of people thinking very seriously about this. The federal employee unions are obviously arguing against it. Gee, I wonder why. This is not good for them at all. It reduces their power by reducing the number of people that need them and reduces the number of employees from which they can pull in dues. So they're compromised. They have a conflict of interest. Those union leaders and the politicians are telling federal workers to reject this, but it's a disservice to those workers. So we'll see how many of them take up this opportunity. But I think real and rapid change is coming to these departments, to the Department of Education, to the USAID, to the EPA, as we talked about last night. 1,000 people have been told they probably won't have jobs here soon. And of course, people voluntarily leaving so that they can start ratcheting down the federal workforce, which ballooned along with the spending under the Brandon administration. President Trump has called out a program in California that's supposed to be a high-speed train between LA and San Francisco. He called it the worst managed project. And it has all the hallmarks of it. The construction project began in 2008. President Trump previously claimed in 2019 that the project was a waste of time. It's supposed to be a 494-mile project featuring trains traveling at 220 miles per hour, which, of course, as you might note, is actually still going to take longer than flying. But it's hundreds of billions of dollars over budget, at least $100 billion more than originally projected. And it's so far away from completion. Apparently, they've only built a few miles. And they're just beginning to lay track with one railhead beginning in Kern County in spring of 2025. I say that the taxpayers of California should pay for this if they want it. And if they're forced to pay for it, they may actually not like their governor very much after that and their legislature and make some changes. I don't want to pay for it. And so it's a total boondoggle. Just tens of miles of test track have been built out of 494. And that's after, what is that? 17 years. 17 years. Stunning. I mean, it's almost an understatement what President Trump said. So, yeah, there is some good news on the nomination front for President Trump's appointees. RFK Jr.'s nomination for Health and Human Services Secretary has been advanced on party lines out of committee. The Louisiana Republican Senator Bill Cassidy, a doctor concerned about Kennedy's stance on vaccines, got to ask the questions he wanted, satisfied with the answers, cast the decisive vote, and advanced the nomination out of the Senate Finance Committee 14-13. Now, the committee vote almost assures that Kennedy will be confirmed, considering Republicans have a 53-47 Senate majority, with J.D. Vance's the ability to cast the tie vote to break the tie. And so even if 3 Republicans vote against it, and I think we know who those 3 could be, he's going to get confirmed. What's interesting is that Democrats are opposing a guy who until very recently really was just a Democrat and still holds many views that are that agree with Democrats, but supports President Trump and his policies. So um, they're losing their minds over this. And yes, one of you pointed out earlier that Pam Bondi has in fact been confirmed in a 54 to 46 votes. So John Fetterman, the Pennsylvania Democrat, joined Republicans and approved Pam Bondi as Attorney General. This is huge. We can finally get down to business. She is fantastic. She's a real go-getter, a true conservative, loyal, tough, cleaned up Florida when she was there. And now we know that's a state that the voters are very happy with because they're reelecting Republicans by sizable majorities there. And now she's going to depoliticize the department, get it back to protecting the American people and pursuing justice. This is probably one of the most important appointments there is, because the Attorney General is going to have really sweeping authority to do this. I'm very optimistic also that Kash Patel is going to get through. He literally made the folks look like complete fools that the Democrats that asked him questions during his hearing. I expect the vote to be, again, more or less the party line stuff. But having said that, the Democrats, they've just decided to oppose everything. They don't want to solve any of the problems, especially since they caused most of them, and they were all for it when they caused them. And so, Democrats aren't really getting down to the work of solving problems. And so when they come back next year and they want to talk about how they reached across the aisle and they're bipartisan and they're working to solve the problems of the American people, they're not going to be able to say that. They're not doing it now. And they've given every indication that despite what they said during the campaign, they're not going to do any such thing. They have decided that they're all in on all the woke garbage. They're all in for preserving every government agency, despite the fact that they're wasting money and failing to fulfill their mandate, and in fact spending money on priorities that are in no way the intent of the American people when these agencies were formed and funded. This is what Democrats are all for, and that's what they're going to do. And if you want to, there's a lot of problems that can come up here along the way. Democrats are going to immediately assign the blame to President Trump. We're going to find in almost every case that it is the legacy of the Brandon administration. And we're going to have to tell those stories. We have to get out there and we have to tell every single story about all the crap that they've done and all the stuff that they've done to our country. So I do hope that we continue to try and win the battle for public opinion, because we do have a better argument. Wasting money, spending on woke garbage, failing to achieve the mandate that these agencies, and there's some of these agencies really have to do that. Like the Defense Department's got to get down to the business of protecting the country, including the border. Same with the Department of Homeland Security, Customs and Border Patrol, Immigrations and Customs Enforcement. And we know that now we have, I think, safe to say, a real president. And I did want to share with you a video, which will be fun for you to watch after this, after I finish the show here. I think you'll enjoy. It's Senator John Kennedy, one of my favorites. And he proclaims that, isn't it nice to have a real president again? And indeed it is. By the way, there are inflation problems, but guess what? Democrats have put all kinds of restrictions on eggs. For instance, here in Oregon, they've made it so that they have to be cage free. That you can find yourself paying $7, $8, $9, $12 for a dozen eggs, insane amounts. But now, many of the places that serve this staple, such as Waffle House Incorporated, is having to add a surcharge because eggs are becoming so scarce and the prices are going up due to the bird flu that's been going around. Again, President Trump has been in office for 13 days. I'm sure that as soon as his Health and Human Services Secretary is sworn in, he's going to be all over this, along with the rest of the administration, who's already, I'm sure, on top of this. But where was the Brandon administration? Well, we had a guy in a coma leading the country. No wonder all these problems exist. So we're going to have to fight. We're going to have to make sure it's clear who has been in charge when egg prices increased by 50% in the past year. And we're going to have to take up the fight to actually solve these problems and make sure that everyone knows who is responsible for causing it, who is in charge when it happened, and who's responsible for solving it, and make sure they know it's been solved. That's going to be our job here in the coming weeks and months. We should get to it. Anyway, I want to thank all of you for joining me here tonight. I hope it was an informative and enjoyable show. And I will look forward to being back with another episode of The Captive Audience next Monday. And tomorrow night, look forward to seeing Sunny and Don join us for the regular Wednesday show. Anyway, have a great week. And isn't it great to have a real president? Have a great night, everyone.